Hey guys, it's eclipse season. So I'm going to talk about the eclipse coming up on October 14th. And it is a new moon at 1:55 p.m., which is a Saturday. So that would be a solar eclipse in Libra. And I'm going to hold off on talking about the following eclipse, because usually they come in pairs, because that eclipse is going to be back in the signs of Taurus and Scorpio. So we're going to be revisiting that. That will be the last one in those two signs, even though the nodes are already in Aries and Libra. You can still get an eclipse in the previous sign. And that's, because if the sun is within, I don't know, 10, 15 degrees of the node, you will get an eclipse. So if the node is close to a cusp of one sign, two signs, then you can get what you might call like a hybrid eclipse. And in case you're wondering, in my opinion, the most important thing are where are the sun and the moon, not where is the node. I mean, that's a factor, but I would always go with the actual physical bodies in the sky as far as sort of dictating the energy of that event rather than where the node is, and you can look at the node too, obviously, and throw that in. And there's probably 2 to 1 chance that both the node and the sun and the moon would be in the same house for you anyway. So it would be just a matter of looking at that house. But yeah, I'll hold off on talking about the eclipse later in the month because it's in different signs and it's going to be very different issues that are brought up. So I'm actually gonna share my screen and we'll look at this baby. Um, okay, so hopefully that's been shared. It looks like it's working. So as you can see, there's a lot going on up here in Libra, and we've got Mars just passing into Scorpio. We've got Mercury involved, and then across the way, with the North Node, we've got Chiron. So that's kind of a big deal. So we're definitely going to be talking about Chiron quite a bit, and Mercury and Mars. So the main dichotomy here when you're talking about the nodes in Aries and Libra um, is you know Aries is going to be about oneself, what one's own needs, and our drive to fulfill those needs and to fully express those needs in ourselves. And then Libra is going to be about giving everybody an equal chance to do that. So Libra is not necessarily about denying our needs because it's a sign of balance, but it's definitely a sign that is about um, making sure everyone's needs get met. So, and when Libra gets out of balance, then that's when it becomes codependent. But Libra does not have to signify codependent. That's just one way that it can show up. But we will be talking about codependence. So, and that's because we've got Chiron opposing this eclipse, and Chiron has been in Aries for quite a while. I think since before 2020, and I've talked about this. Chiron in Aries is a particularly difficult placement, I believe, for Chiron, because Aries is kind of like that initial spark of selfhood, and Chiron you know, we all know about the wounded healer, but one of the things in the Chiron story that is not talked about too often is shame. Um, Chiron is the result of a union between a god and I think a goddess who had turned into a horse, and so they produced an offspring that was half human looking and half equine looking. So there was a lot of shame. Chiron's father, who I believe was Zeus, it's usually Zeus, uh, was ashamed of Chiron, so they had to kind of hide him away, and Chiron eventually, chose to live sort of away from society, and um, eventually ended up becoming a mentor and healer, and taught uh, other gods like Hercules and Apollo, not only the healing arts, but different, arts of war and other things. So, that strategy of exiling himself because of his shame ended up having, um, a great benefit for himself and others, because he probably never would have become the person that he became otherwise. Uh, that said, though, we've got to look at the shame. We've got to deal with the shame. So yeah, Chiron in Aries is is really about, you know, do do I matter? Do I have a right to exist at all, or does my opinion matter? And I think I talked about this in another video. We saw a lot of this in the last few years, where people kind of, you know, maybe they felt one way and they would do things a certain way, um, but everyone else was doing things differently, and not only that, but they were being very vocal about everyone having to do it that way. I mean, we all know what I'm talking about, but I'm on YouTube, so I'm not going to use certain words for the moment. Uh, but yeah, I've described how we've really seen this Chiron and Aries thing play out societally, where people were really on the opposite end of the spectrum, in the codependent end of the spectrum. Um, so now we're coming around to having some eclipses uh, that are going to bring this issue up again. And I think, there will be some people who folded in the last few years that maybe are not willing to fold anymore. And I think this eclipse could bring up some of those feelings and some of those issues. I think this could be a real cathartic eclipse. And the reason I say that is because we've had Mars in Libra, for the last, I don't know, month and a half. And so Mars, naturally likes to be in Aries, which is Mars ruled sign, and in Libra, which is a Venus ruled sign. Um, Mars is kind of pent up, because again, Venus is wanting to get everyone's needs met equally, whereas Mars is really, putting his needs first. So there's really been a lot of pent up energy with Mars in Libra. All of a sudden, right when the eclipse happens, Mars bumps into the next sign, which is Scorpio, which Mars rules. And it's really interesting with these two um, pairs of signs. Aries, Libra is ruled by Mars and Venus, and then Scorpio, Taurus is ruled by Mars and Venus, but they switch. Um, so yeah, we've had Mars with all this pent up energy, and suddenly he's in a sign that he rules, and all that energy is going to want to come out. Plus, he's trying to Saturn, in another water sign, some more emotions being pent up. Saturn is apt to want to dam up the emotions. And when we have a trine, we've got an easy flow of energy. So maybe some of that pent up emotion from Saturn and Pisces is going to flow into Mars in Scorpio, where there's some freedom of expression. And, somebody who's been, I mean, really like this eclipse, it seems to tell like a really detailed story, where I can see somebody who's been kind of putting their own needs aside and making sure everyone else is happy gets fed up, and what do eclipses do? Well, they shine a light on what's going on, the two luminaries. And and then we've got Mars sort of releasing its energy. And then we've also got Mercury involved, only 4 degrees off from the eclipse. So Mercury is going to probably, make whatever is going on inside want to come out and be verbalized. And if it's not verbalized publicly, at least, it will be verbalized to ourselves. I mean, we will want to put words to this. It just won't be some kind of blind emotional outburst, but Mercury's there to analyze, why are we upset? What have we been doing? Um, and again, I'm talking about, what have we been doing, not like what did somebody do to us? It may look that way because if we've been doing the codependent thing, if we're doing the out of balance Libra thing, um, it may look like people have been taking advantage of us. But people can't take advantage of us, of course, unless, we go along with it. So um, that's basically what I see happening here, on the 14th. And I yeah, I think it could be cathartic. It could, we could see things in the news. Now, of course, we know the news is not going to present everything. You know, it's not. It's the news is not going to present the Aries side of the argument. Uh, right now, because that it is uncool to be Aryan, to be Mars-like. In this society, it is uncool to put your needs first. You are going to get canceled, if you say, my opinion matters, no matter, if 95% of the country or the world is saying something different, my opinion still matters. What I want to do still matters. Um, that has basically been uncool to think that or express that. So I think this eclipse is going to bring up all these issues, and it could be very interesting. To see what shows up in the news. But as I say, I wouldn't count on um, seeing the Mars side of it. I equate, Mars at Aries maybe gets a bad rap, um, but it is the first sign, and there's something about it. Uh, I was thinking about Chogyam Trungpa's concept of basic goodness, and I think of Aries as representing like the first maybe 6 months of life, when we're just full of life and vitality, and like there's our needs are just expressed um, directly and immediately. There's no forebrain in the way of expressing those needs that's going to think, oh, maybe my this need isn't okay, or how should I phrase it, or you there's none of that. You just sort of, as a baby, you cry, or you make a noise, when you need something, and hopefully your caregivers are going to pick up on it. And I think if in those first 6 months of life, if we get mirrored back, uh, a sense of, our expression, our needs are okay, then we come out of that uh, initial months of life with this sense of basic goodness intact. That we are basically good, and that life is basically good. And so I think this is the highest expression of that Aries energy. And so, um, and I think, it's really primary. I think, we do see a lot of people, of course, on the planet that, don't give a shit about other people's needs and are putting their needs first. And it just so happens that mostly the people that are in control of stuff, whether it be corporate or government, are those kind of people. They're, those kind of, uh, I would say mostly sociopaths who are way, way, way too far over on the Aries Mars energy side, and don't have a lot of Libra going on, don't have uh, empathy, are not interested in making sure everyone's needs get met. Now they will talk that talk, which makes it confusing. They will talk the talk of they will present themselves as incredibly Libran, but in fact they are um, incredibly uh, Aryan or Martian, but in a very unbalanced way. Um, so I'm not talking about that kind of Mars energy, that kind of Aries energy where it's um, to the detriment of others. But there definitely needs to be, um, some recognition that my needs matter. Um, and I think you know, if I had to choose, I would say that is primary, before you can then try and make sure everyone's needs are met. I think you have to have a handle on what are my needs, and how can I get them met? How can I express them? I think that is actually primary, and then and it makes sense because Aries is before Libra and Zodiac. It's before by quite a long ways, by 6 signs. So I would say, and it's kind of been a long-winded way to say it, but again, this eclipse is going to be about that, reclaiming that healthy Mars energy, the healthy Aries energy, um, you know, knowing that we matter. And then, when we have a healthy sense of ourself and our own basic goodness, then we can be as Libra as we want. We can go for it with the Libra energy because we know we're not going to abandon ourselves. So I think that feels like a great place to end. So I'm gonna stop it here, and I will be back probably a little bit after this eclipse with the video on the next eclipse. So yeah, and maybe some videos in between. So take care of yourself on Saturday the 14th. Again, it's happening around 2 p.m. and I will see you next time.